hybrid, and how does that make me feel, and how does it affect my practice? So what might I need to just think about adjusting, or where do I set my boundaries around this thing called hybrid? So what I want to do is just to start off with getting a sense of where everybody is on this kind of spectrum. You know, how much of your work, if you look ahead to between now and Christmas, how much of your work is going to be face-to-face, how much virtual, how much hybrid, or how much is a mix of all of those three? And generally, how do you react when a client says to you, please, can you run a hybrid workshop for me? What happens inside when you hear those words? Because I know my reaction, and I'm really curious to hear what everybody else's reaction is. And what I want to do then is to just share the way that I make sense in my head about when somebody says hybrid to me, what are the different kinds of hybrid scenarios that come up for me. You may agree with them, or you may have others you want to add. But what I want to do then is turn over the bulk of the session to almost use this as a little bit of a crowdsourcing of wisdom from facilitators to say, well, you know, if I look at this particular hybrid lens, these are things that I think about when I'm designing that, what technical support I might need, and what are the things I'm thinking about when I'm facilitating. So my aim of this session is that we can have a really good chat about these kinds of things, but that we help each other develop some new thinking, some resources, and then I will share that then across the IAF network, as well as with those of you who are here today, as almost just like a little resource bank around what that might mean for your own individual facilitation practice, as we make these different transitions at the moment. How does that sound? Is that kind of interest to you all? Great. If it's not, then please go now. But so what I've got is I've got a couple of Mentimeter polls to share with you. Just a couple of slides with a couple of questions on. Now, if you follow that link through, you should see a slide then that asks you some questions about the next 4 months. Where will your work be delivered? Can everybody see that and respond to it?
Would you mind to say the number of the Mentimeter? I mean, would you mind to type the code?
The code in? Of course I can do. Yeah, if that's easier for you. The code is 1875 5098. There we go. If that's easier for you, that's no problem.
Thank you, Gwen.
Gwen is the one which is asking the response to clients. I have that.
You have that one. Okay. Well, let me go. Let me give you the first one first. Have you got?
Okay, I'm going out of it.
Okay. So have you got one titled up facilitation work?
I'm clicking on the link, and it takes me to, in the next 4 months, where do you want your work delivered?
That's correct.
It
takes me right to the facilitation work in the next 4 months.
That's it. That's the one. Yeah, that's the first one. Yeah. So respond to that one first.
Okay, great. Okay. It's asking me to refresh and wait for you. Is that
okay? I'll move on to the next one. I'm just waiting for everybody to respond to the first one. Hello, Isabel. I didn't get a chance to say
Hi.
hello to you. I
Hi
was
there.
in full flow when you joined.
No,
Lovely to
it's
see
fine.
you.
I can't see your face at the moment because I've got the slide in front of me, and
That's okay. That's okay. Well, you can hear my voice. So
I can.
it's lovely to see you.
And you. Oh, hang on a minute. I think I can get my other device to work. Oh yeah. Now I can see you and the slide. I'm not very techie, I'm afraid. So
I suddenly feel like I've forgotten how to do all of this tech. I've had, you know, a month off work, and I'm suddenly kind of going, right, how do I do this now? How do I do that now? Right, I'm going to move on to the next slide. So you may need to refresh, or it may automatically come up.
It does. Yeah.
Lovely.
oh, so this is the first slide that I
So the first slide should say facilitation work, what's happening in the next 4 months for you. And then the second slide is facilitating hybrid workshops.
Okay.
How do you respond to
did this one
clients?
already. It's okay, I'll do it again. Right. You've already voted on this question. I thought I had. Yeah.
I think some have, yeah. Some people have. Okay, so let me share the results of these, because I'm keen for people to, what am I doing here? Okay, let me just share this with you all. So you can see here that people's facilitation work over the next 4 months, most people are going to be doing a mix of face-to-face, some hybrid and virtual as well. So that's interesting to see. When I last did a survey like this, which was probably June time, everybody was still very virtual, and people weren't having the mix of hybrid in that yet. Interesting, Becky, you're saying that you'll be 90% virtual. Who didn't get that question in Mentimeter, and where would your answer be?
Yeah, I guess I'd put it virtual since it's almost all virtual.
Okay, all right, that's fine. That's fine. And Martin's 100% virtual. I'm the majority of my work is virtual. But I am doing some face-to-face work, actually, which will be my first face-to-face delivery for, gosh, by then it'll be probably 18, 19 months since I did something face-to-face. So I'm kind of thinking about that with a mix of excitement and will I still remember what it's like to stand in front of a live group for 2 or 3 days. And I'm starting to get a lot more inquiries with hybrid. I have done some hybrid delivery, but I'm noticing that those inquiries are starting to come through more and more, which actually then takes us on to the next set of results about our reactions to it. And it's interesting, if you look at that spread, somebody's kind of like, no, avoid it at all costs. There's a big group of us who are cautiously, and it depends on the outcomes. Somebody's, yes, I'll do it with reservations. But nobody is like confident, yeah, absolutely, bring it on. And I'm kind of curious as to what's behind that. You know, we're a small group, so let's just all speak kind of when you want to, really. I don't want it all to be me talking about this topic. You know, tell me what for you is this cautiously and it depends on the outcomes. Isabel, go ahead.
It's about equality. If some people are in the room and some are not in the room, it feels instinctively, it feels unequal. And so that's my caution. Right. How would I ensure, and I can't remember whether it was you or someone else talked about a buddy system, which sounded like quite a good idea, but it was almost, how would I ensure that the people not in the room were equal?
Right. So for you, the caution is about equality. And Martin, I can see you've got your hand up there. Where do you sit on this?
Well, I wrote cautiously. Depends on the outcomes, not because it depends on the outcomes, but because I would respond cautiously.
Okay. So tell me about your cautiously.
But it depends on more than that, and I'm not exactly sure what. But this is a timely opportunity for me to think about all of this, because I've been so busy online the last 18 months. I've turned down all client opportunities for the next couple of months, which I had intended to do for the summer, but then a contract came up that was too good to turn down. So here I am in September. And I'm wondering, will I accept anything that's not 100% virtual? And if so, what? And I don't know. I don't really have any appetite to do anything face-to-face or hybrid.
Yeah.
I'd much rather not at the moment, and not because of fear of COVID, more to do with just the extra complications and uncertainties around planning something that may or may not happen as planned, and something that may have to be replanned and replanned. I don't have much patience for that at the moment.
Interesting. And can I invite whoever said that they would go ahead, but with reservations? Where those? What are your reservations that come into play there?
It's all very linked with what we're defining as hybrid, really, as well. But I've been having, right now I'm actually in Italy because I've had a client and I've just done 2 workshops in hybrid form. And with that, I mean, we were like 36 persons and 18 were physically in present, and the rest were from all over the world, some in various continents. And so you have to like, there are many issues which you have to pay attention to. So the technical issue is really massive. In my case, I was working with an association which already has a very good setup, technical setup. And so I didn't have to think much about that, even though you always need to check that in the physical breakout rooms, you have internet as well, which is functioning all the time. And you have to do so you have to do all the checking and preparation, like for a physical workshop. And you have to have a very good technical setup. And you have to ensure that as much as possible, there is like equality, which we were mentioning before. So you have to be very careful at giving voice to everyone. And so if you put in place this, then you could have something similar to a new normal where you work and you can get results. But
No, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And I sit probably somewhere between the cautiously and the reservations. And that is probably linked to the outcomes that the client is wanting, and whether a hybrid event is in fact the best way to reach those outcomes, or whether there may need to be perhaps a series of events. Some are held that are for those who are together in the room, and some are held for those virtually. And then there is a process that is generated about weaving outcomes and outputs together. But for me, so much of it depends on what it is you're trying to achieve. And are you really clear about what you mean by hybrid? And I think I want to just go on and share with you a mural board that I've created that I'd like us to continue to generate together. But let me just share with you how my brain kind of is sorting out this thing called hybrid, because I've done a lot of thinking about it, because people keep asking me, what is it that you believe hybrid is, and how should we approach it as facilitators? And so for me, my definition of hybrid is it's where we've got at the same event, workshop, meeting, whatever it is you're calling it, that you have some people who are physically present in the room and some people who are accessing via Zoom or Teams at the same time. Now, I know there's other definitions of hybrid out there, you know, around hybrid working arrangements. You know, am I in the office 3 days a week? Am I in the office 2 days a week? And then for me, there's another kind of definition, which is hybrid in terms of intentionally working synchronously and asynchronously over the same piece of work and the same project or event. But for me, I've kind of sorted it into four potentially different kinds of hybrid working that I want to just share with you and get your thoughts about, because I'm wondering if there are other ones that I've actually missed and not really paid attention to. So the first one for me is around a conference or a large company event. And that is where it's quite a presentational format. It might be sharing information or updating attendees, whether it's on company information or sector and specialism information. There might be some panel discussions, but the level of interaction is probably at a, you know, submit your Q&A kind of a level, really. So it's probably quite heavily moderated. And I see that as being one environment for hybrid approaches to be used and adapted. The second one for me is around what I would call team meetings. So regular meetings for established teams, whether that's a functional team, a leadership team, or a project team. And it's about reviewing performance, and it's kind of quite action orientated. You know, let's review our performance from last month and look ahead to this month. Now, that is another environment for hybrid working, whether that's leadership or whether that might be facilitated externally by somebody like ourselves. Then for me, there's this topic which I call generative workshops. My work is very much in this space, in this dialogic, participatory, generative environment. And so these generative workshops are where I would probably focus my time or categorize my facilitation in this hybrid approaches. They're exploratory, they're emergent, they might involve different stakeholder groups from inside or outside a single organization or across a network of multiple organizations. They're going to be very interactive, they'll be sharing perspectives, they'll be creating solutions, collaborating. So there'll be that real generative element. Some of it might be done in small groups and some of it might be done in the whole group together. So for me, that I've classified those as generative workshops. And then I think there's this fourth area, which might be much more geared towards learning and development. So a leadership program or a skills development program, but it's very much a learning and development agenda, bringing a class or a group of people together, which might incorporate some online learning, some face-to-face learning, or some hybrid or virtual learning as well. So those are the four categories that I came up with. And I'm wondering, one, what your reactions are, and two, have I missed anything? That's why I've got other formats, because you may view it in a different way to me.
Gwen, I won't say missed, but something that's interesting in the learning and development was where I was online, but two or three of the delegates were in a room together.
Right.
And in this case, they were sharing a screen, which I actually found quite difficult to manage. I almost would have been happier with them being side by side on different screens. So it's not a different category, but it was a different sort of challenge. So it wasn't me and a few people in the room and the other people out there. It was anyway.
So it was a number of people sharing one device.
Yeah, and it wasn't even just about them sharing the device, but it was when the idea was to go into breakout groups.
Right.
That you're almost in this situation where your default position was to have them in the same breakout group because they were physically in the same room, but actually that wasn't the most productive way of breakout groups working, because part of the joy of doing something was to get people mixing with people that they didn't normally sit with. So, as I said, it's not a different category, but it was a different sort of challenge within that category.
Right. And that might be something that you want to raise, because in a second, what I want you to do is to start to gather your wisdom, your thoughts, your experience under each one of these, to say, what are the things we really need to pay attention to if we are going to run a hybrid session in one of these 4 areas. Yeah, so thank you for that, Isabel. Martin.
Thank you. It's interesting, Isabel, you say that, because I've been wondering to myself whether I'm going to start discovering in preparing for an online session that some people are going to be in the same room together. In the same way as even before lockdown, I found I was increasingly discovering when I was preparing face-to-face sessions that the client would tell me at the last minute, oh, by the way, we've got these people are going to be joining online. And they hadn't, it hadn't occurred to them to let me know until, so even before lockdown, I was thinking I really have to get used to asking early on in the design process, are you anticipating having anybody join this meeting online?
Yeah.
It's just occurred to me now, I might have to start asking the opposite about online meetings. Are you anticipating anybody being in the same place and sharing devices?
Yeah.
In terms of your categories, Gwen, are you presenting those as types of meetings that you think are well suited to hybrid, or at least where hybrid could work?
I'm presenting them as the range of potential hybrid situations that clients may ask us to facilitate in. And at the moment, I'm not saying whether any of them are better or worse than the others. Okay. They're really just to help us sort of navigate, rather than having this big thing called hybrid. And when I'm starting then, because in a second, what I want us to do is to go, okay, well, if we're looking at a large company event and we're thinking about how do we design it, what's our tech requirements, and how do we facilitate it? What are the kind of things we need to really be very mindful of? So it was to help. It helps me sort it out in my head, and I'm offering it as a kind of a suggestion to say it also might help us in our learning together to categorize them in this way. Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, even what Martin was saying made me reflect on what I've just had an experience in. I think it's so important to guarantee equal dignity to all the participants. Now, your 4 scenarios might be slightly different for hybrid. For example, the conference, it depends on what you want to do, but if you are expecting interaction, you have to define what type of interaction you want, because if it's like a Zoom, how do you say, with questions and answers, and it's just a presentation, yeah, you might have some people in a room watching one single screen, and you can have many people from their houses joining in, and then they write their questions and answers. So in that sense, it's hybrid. I've been working with the generative workshops, and for example, in this experience I mentioned, I had to make extremely clear that to guarantee dignity to all, and full participation for all, as the workshop was a participatory exercise, those 18 present had to have their PC, their portable computer with them, and they would link with their PC on a Zoom, even though we had a big screen showing those present, and everyone would keep the microphones off, and they had headphones. And then when we broke up in breakout rooms, we had like 2 or 3 physical people with 2 or 3 or 4 in Zoom. And yeah, it was a bit of an arrangement, but it functioned because everyone when he spoke, he put on the microphone and then he put it off and things like that. So you have to have a very good technical backup.
Absolutely. And Andrew, thank you for sharing that. One of the phrases I love that you said was dignity for all. I just think that's such a lovely phrase, a way of describing that inclusiveness that you also mentioned, Isabel, about people being able to contribute in the way that they want to. But some of the things you just talked about, Andrew, in terms of the considerations around the design, the considerations around the technical setup that you need, as well as the facilitation on the day, are exactly the kinds of experience-based hints and tips that I want us to start collecting in a second. But before we do that, I just want to hear from Steph first.
Cheers, Gwen. I love that phrase as well. Sorry, I've lost the full gallery, so I can't thank you, Andrew. I loved what you said about ensuring dignity for everybody, because that's so important. But I think also I just wanted to share my very first experience of working virtually, which was in May of 2020, where I was invited to help out on an online book festival. And the response to that was absolutely extraordinary, because people who would never normally go to a literary festival because they felt they couldn't afford it, or that they weren't of the class that did that kind of thing, or they had a disability, or they, or they had a specific need, so dyslexia or anything like that. We had a massive response coming back that being online hugely opened up a literary festival in a way that the two sponsors, the BBC and the Arts Council, had funded people to do previously and never had any success with. And I think there were 20,000 attendees at that book fair. It was called the Big Book Weekend, and I was a festival liaison. Who set that up with another journalist. But yes, I think it's really important to remember that there are massive benefits in terms of diversity inclusion.
Yes,
in the way that we're working now.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that, Steph. Thank you.
That's an awful lot of breakout rooms.
That's a hell of a lot of breakout rooms, isn't it? I can imagine.
What's a very interesting thing, and when they repeated it the following year, I think they lost the magic, sadly. In the first year, each author was interviewed on Zoom, and that was live, and people logged in and watched the live Zoom. It was either live or recorded, but anyway, people watched it all at the same time. They all logged into chat boxes, and there were amazing chats where people would log in and say, "Hi, I'm calling in from Costa Rica. Hi, I'm in Birmingham," and they were commenting on what the authors were saying. And then the author joined at the end of the talk, having seen the chat box, and commenting in the chat box at the same time as well. And there was this amazing equal discussion that was a really amazing part of the festival, which sadly wasn't repeated the following time. I don't know why, because I wasn't involved in it the second time, but it was extraordinary.
Yeah, amazing. So what I'd like to invite you all to do, sorry, Miguel.
Oh, just saying, I see clearly these four scenarios when perhaps I was more oriented or focused because of my experience more in consulting than in facilitation on team meetings.
Right.
So the sequence of events and different gatherings, perhaps you start with in presence, and then you continue the conversation. You keep the conversation going online basis. Keep gathering people in through Zoom sessions, and then again in presence. So keeping the conversation ongoing through a sequence of events, I think is having this synchronously and asynchronously event. For me was the very first hybrid definition, or the hybrid in mind. Although I see clearly the other three scenarios is I like very much the generative workshops, because in order also to sometimes breaking down walls in the organization. So keeping people from different areas, as you say here, it's really important. And
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. So I'm hoping from just hearing what you've described that you'll be able to add all of that experience into the area under team meetings. Let me show you what I've got set up further along the mural, and I will let me also just put a link to the mural into the chat box so you can all access it and join in yourselves as well. So this link, if you follow it, should take you directly onto this mural that I'm sharing with you now. So what I've generated are an area for each of the four that I talked about earlier on. And what I'd really love you to do is David's going to set up the 5 breakout rooms, I think, David, because then we can have one which is completely unrelated or something that emerged that people want to capture. Is go into the room that you're drawn to in those 4. If everybody's in the same room, that's absolutely fine. It doesn't have to be people being evenly spread across. Go wherever your energy is. Have a conversation in there about, what are your hybrid facilitation top tips and wisdom for that particular topic. Let's take team meetings. When you're thinking about designing them, when you're thinking about the tech that might be needed to make a hybrid approach work, and what your facilitation might need to be like on that day in that team meeting to make a hybrid session work. And capture those on the mural. And then stay in that room as long as you like. I'm going to give you, there's going to be half an hour to do this camera capturing, moving around and sharing, and we'll get a sense of when the work is done. We may not need half an hour, but we might need more than half an hour. But let's start with half an hour. Go in and then move around to other rooms if you want to. And it really is a kind of a bit of an open space for you to go and have some conversations, to capture and to share. So David has given me the signal to say that the rooms are ready, and they're self-select rooms. So you just need to decide where you want to go. And I'm going to pop in and out of the rooms as well. And we'll probably lose each other and find each other, and we can just get a good sense of where we want to be. But I really want us to kind of share our wisdom and capture it so we can then also share it with other people. Anybody got any questions before I...
Would it be more practical if I actually named the rooms?
That would be hugely practical.
Right.
Yes,
let me just give that. Takes me just. I'm not used to doing it. So room number 1, I'm going to change it to team meetings. Room number 2, give me the name.
So we've got team meetings. We've got let's call it a conference. Then we've got generative workshops, and then we've got learning and development.
Generative. Okay, and number 5 is out on its own. So
and number 5 is just other.
Yeah. Learning and development. Okay. Should be at the top of your screens normally. Okay.
Lovely. So have you pressed?
Ready?
Away we go.
So how do we join the rooms? Is it here in a breakout room? Yeah.
So you just move, so you just assign yourself. So if you go into the breakout room menu, then just assign yourself to wherever you want to go. Becca's already in generative, waiting for somebody to go and talk to her. You can see where other people are, and then you can just move yourself around.
I have the generative one. I don't know how to put myself into it. I've got the list.
If you click on the right, you can see join on the grey bar normally.
On the right of.
So if you hover over your name, and it should say that you can move yourself into that room, assign yourself to that room.
I've got a grey box that says breakout rooms in progress. I can see the name of each room, and I can see people's names, but I can't see my name.
If you hover over your name, you should be under unassigned at the top. You don't have your name. You want to go into generative.
Just click join.
Yeah.
No box that says join, and there's my name isn't on it either.
Okay. I'm going to move you, Steph. I'm going to move you into the generative room.
Right.
And then let me know if you want to go somewhere else.
Thank you.
Maybe it's because Steph's joined via the Zoom browser version or an old version of the app.
Possibly. I just clicked on the link that you sent. But I will breakout room. Thank you very much.
No worries. No worries. So where do you fancy going, Martin?
That's precisely what I'm thinking about.
Let it emerge, let it emerge.
I know.
I'm struggling a little bit because I'm wondering whether actually the type of meeting makes that much difference to the implications for whether it's online, face-to-face or hybrid or whatever.
Interesting, isn't it? I think personally, I think there are some differences, but that's my personal perspective. But I think it creates some different considerations around design and around the technical requirements, and also around, in my mind, it creates those little subtle differences around those three topics of design, tech, and facilitation. But maybe they don't spark for you.
And the post-its are for insights or tips?
The post-its are for you to add some
design
tips.
Top tips and wisdom, yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to go and dive into conference, I think. So I'm going to go and play over there. I'm going to stop screen sharing because everybody else can see it as well.
Well, I'm going to go into room 5 since it's been so thoughtfully provided.
You okay, Miguel?
Well, David, I entered in the mural with my iPad Pro, but it's not the right solution. So I'm back again with the browser. So it's still.
So where would you like to go?
Well, maybe team meetings or.
Team meetings? Well, you can go to team meetings, but there's nobody in there. Is that okay? Is that okay for you?
So, or maybe.
As you want to just.
Where is the people? Where are the people?
Well, Gwen is on her own in conference, and there's 4 people in generative, and one person, Martin, is in room number 5 on his own. Room number 5 is kind of a general one, you know.
Well, take me there if.
I'll put you in there, Martin. Okay, so up number 5. Martin is in there.
Okay, thank you.
No, he's not. He's got into generative.
Oh. So, well, take me there. Take me there. It's generative. Yeah. I will do.
Yeah, there's 5 people in there. Up.
Oh. Well.
Is that okay?
So yeah, no problem. Yeah, take me there, please, David.
You're going in. You just have to click accept or something.
Entrar. Okay.
Do you want the recording or not? It's okay.
I think it'd be useful to just capture the rest of the debriefing and where people are with this.
Okay. Running in progress.
Rebecca, we kind of left it that you'd asked the question about facilitation.
When the stuff that I have done, even just virtually, forget hybrid, the stuff that I've done, I felt very I wasn't confident to say I need an extra person with me. I felt that I should be able to do everything. And I have to say, Gwen, that's one of the wonderful things I got from your book, when you just said, forget that. And I think that's the thing in terms of facilitation. If you've got people outside the room and in the room, you need a separate person to keep their eye on that screen. You know, you need a separate person to read the room, you know, so that you're chopping up those tasks exactly as you mentioned, Gwen. But it gave me real confidence, because I don't know if it was Isabel who said, oh, you know, I'm a baby Zoomer. Because of my age, I really lacked confidence. I thought, oh gosh, this is because I'm rubbish. I don't know because I'm older. And it's like, no, this is not possible for one person to do effectively. And I think that's the other thing. This isn't about facilitation, sorry, Becca, but working online or working hybrid isn't cheaper, because the amount of preparation and working with other people and bringing in other skills is yeah, when I've actually logged out the time and spoken to clients about that, it's been much bigger than we expected.
I think facilitating a hybrid event adds another layer of complexity. And so, yes, you absolutely need to have somebody who is physically in the room. You know, as a facilitator, I would not at all suggest that you're trying to facilitate virtually when there's people in a room together. And I also think you need somebody who's facilitating the virtual group as well. So one person in person, one person who's doing the virtual work, and then potentially an actual technical person, depending on the level of complexity around screens, around microphones. It depends on the kind of environment that you are in. You know, a generative workshop, which is what you've all been talking about here, you know, can be quite small. You know, it might be 7 or 8 people, but it could also be 30 or 40 people. You know, so I would, yeah, and you're right, it takes far more resource than I think people imagine and allow themselves to say to clients, this is resource heavy, you know, is this and it's part of that contracting of just checking out. Do you really, and I think somebody put this down here, they don't know what they don't know. Do you realize how this desire for this thing called hybrid is coming with an awful lot of things that you may not be aware of? You know, let's just, you know, lay it all out on the table before we make a decision.
Might be also a danger that, you know, let's say clients will, because they have all these toys, might try and make it complicated for themselves by seeing how far they can go with all these bits and pieces, smells and bells and bits of lace hanging off, and where all they might need is just a chat, you know, and they might try and drown out the exchange and the generation of ideas, but with show business, with technical showbiz, like, you know. So I think there's a danger that because we have the technology, we're supposed to be pushing it as far as it can go, like, you know.
Yeah. What's on your mind?
I think the more you're talking, the more I'm in awe of the teachers. I just think, you know, we're saying, or I'll speak for myself, I'm saying, you know, it could be quite complicated running a hybrid event with 7 or 8 people in the room. And I'm thinking of the teachers running a hybrid event with 30, half of them in the room, half of them not in the room, trying to manage a curriculum, nobody appreciating that it's taking them 3 times as long to prepare the lesson as before. No wonder they're crumbling and drowning and stressing out. You know, maybe it's not clap for carers this month, maybe it's clap for teachers, because I'm just thinking that I'm in complete awe of them.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was, you asked me what's at the top of my mind, and I think that's well, that's just at the top of my mind.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Steph, you've got your hand up. Was that a...
Yes, I just, and I do agree with you, Isabel, but it was a different point. When we're working in virtual environments, or if it's a request for hybrid, people, I've had a client ask me if they could record, and I've said, yes, absolutely. And then they've emailed me to say how delighted they are that they've used the recording to use that material with various teams. Now that's kind of great, but it kind of isn't, because I would previously have been asked to come in and do that work. And I think that's something that I didn't occur to me to discuss, but I'm wondering what other people's experiences of that are, and how you are dealing with that in terms of costs and IP, and making sure that, yeah, what you've produced then doesn't just kind of, you know, because they used to talk about cascading training, didn't they? Or can you train our trainers to do this? And you go, yes, and you'd work out a price. And now it's like, yeah, you've given that.
Yeah.
That discussion came up. I don't know, Andrew, if that rings a bell with you, but that came up. There was a big thread somewhere about graphic facilitation. Does that ring any bells with you, Andrew, about how you manage that? Because about people using graphic facilitation, suddenly, you know, that thing you charge 500 euros for was distributed to 36,000 people around the world. And, you know, it helped them generate, you know, there was a discussion about how you kind of get around that. And it goes, I don't know where, I'm sorry, how useless information that was I've just given you, but there is a thread out there somewhere, probably on the IAF or somewhere about that. Does that ring any bells with you, Andrew?
No, I didn't follow that. No,
the discussion open about that.
I wanted to chip in as well, if it's okay, Gwen.
Please, yeah. Yeah, somebody's got a bird speaking in the background.
It's mine, I'm sorry.
David is, yeah, bird lover. No, actually, I just, this experience I had was a 3-workshop event. The first one was it was a strategy based on the top transformational strategy. So the first one was in late June, and it was the vision thing. And last week we did the obstacles, the contradictions, and strategy. No, a full day. Now it was really a challenge, but actually I was doing the facilitation. I was alone as a facilitator. Not by choice, but I was doing it in another language, in Italian, and it was very complex to get some help from a facilitation point of view. But what was really important was that I had 2 technical people the association provided, and they were really good, and they ensured that they had cameras, they had the technical know-how, and they were very much used to Zoom and to manage this thing. So that saved the thing. It's so important to understand your client's knowledge of technical aspects. The vision thing, I did actually a manual vision thing, with the, how do you explain in English? I'm still stuck with Italian. The cards and the post-its, I used the physical ones because nobody knew Mural or Miro, and it was for them impossible to have an extra session beforehand to explain how it works. So we had a very good camera, they filmed me and they could see everything, but evidently the more post-its we had, the less they participated, but somehow we managed to do that. Now I used a software which they knew, Padlet, the one I was saying before. It's a very rudimentary sort of Mural, but it's me going to meet their needs with the software they knew and trying to adapt it to my needs to make them use less time and fully participate as much as possible. And yeah, that worked. And we did manage, actually the obstacles one was much longer than I thought, but then with the strategy one was shorter, and everyone by that time had got used to everything, and it worked quite well. Sorry for explaining it is a bit longish, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting. They're really interesting situations because, you know, again, a bit like, I don't know, 18 months ago, we were breaking new ground with doing all of this work virtually. You know, now we're breaking new ground again with getting our head around this thing called hybrid. And I think, you know, for me, there is so much about contracting, about exploration before commitments are made, both from a, you know, let's really explore, do we understand what we are creating here? Do you understand as a client? How do I help you understand the technicality of a really well-run hybrid event, let alone the cost, and being realistic as a facilitator or as a consultant about how you price, and being aware of all of the different elements of it, which are all, you know, they're things that we've kind of come to terms with when we're doing face-to-face work. We've come to terms with when we're doing virtual work, and now we need to kind of create this blend of things together. And I think there's some really careful conversations around the designing to create something which works, let alone your confidence either in the room or virtually, and whoever you're partnering with, as well as the technical side of things, to just, because there is this bottleneck, you know, I've heard it described as a kind of a hybrid bottleneck, where you've got contributions that you want to encourage in from those people who are virtual, what we call Zoomies, and then you've got the contributions from those in the room, as well as the dynamics that are going on when people are in the room together. And I don't think people are intentionally excluding those people who are there on the, however big that screen might be. I really don't think there's an intentional exclusion, but you can't help it. When you're sitting next to somebody and maybe you haven't seen them for ages, and you're having those sidebar conversations and you're connecting with them in a different way to an equally loved colleague, but you can only see them, you know, in a little box like this on the screen. And how do we both design for that and facilitate for that really mindfully? Isabel.
Well, it was making me think about I guess it harps back to the breaks element of it, but it's making me think about that one might need to be a lot more directive in terms of the chairing, but then create more downtime where you're saying, this is time to chat. I'm thinking aloud here. This isn't something I've thought through, but it's this idea that in order to be inclusive in the formal part of the meeting, you might have to be a much stricter chair stroke facilitator, and then create a space. This is free space to have a chat dialogue, just free-flowing conversation. As I said, I haven't thought this through, but as you're talking, that's the other thing that's jumping out at me. And just one other thing before I pass on, it was Steph's point about intellectual property. So there was a bit of me thinking, okay, well, when you're in a breakout room, I don't think you can record in a breakout room. I think you can only record in the main room. You can record in breakout rooms, but not many people do. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So there was something about being mindful of how much of it would be good for them to record. This is a bit like leaving them wanting. So there's a certain amount that they can record, which becomes enough of your trailer that they're so excited about the bit that you haven't put copyright on that it becomes your free marketing for the rest of your program, which you tell them that they can't record. Again, I'm thinking aloud as you're talking, but you know, there's a lot of times that people ask, can I have a copy of your slides? And some people are very precious about their slides. And I think, of course you can have a copy of my slides, because actually you're not going to be able to deliver it the way that I've delivered it. You know, you either like me and the way I deliver it or you don't, but the slides don't get the essence. And I'm not sure that even a recording of you doing the best that you can be will ever capture the essence and the power of being in the room, whether it's a virtual room or not, at the time, and the sense of the dynamics. So yeah, again, I'm just playing around with a thought in my mind of saying, well, let them record some of it and make that your marketing material.
I think my I will come to you in a second as well. I think my view on that, Steph, because I had intended to answer your question and realised I forgot. So thank you for the prompt, Isabel. Is that I would be really protective over it, and it's kind of, if you're there, you listen to it and you take what you take from it. But if you're not there, then you don't get a recording.
Yeah, I have to admit, I was caught on the hop with that one. It was a webinar with interactive breakouts on a particular approach, and I know it's gone around it's gone around the whole organisation, and it's an organisation that supports other organisations. So it really, I know that it's gone to teams who I would have been training otherwise. So it is upsetting, but we have to learn these lessons, don't we? We're all making it up as we go along.
Yeah, and you flagged for me something to really, and again, it's about that contracting, isn't it? It's about, where are my boundaries? How do I set the contract up so it works for me professionally and for my IP? And Miguel, you wanted to.
Oh yes, just because yesterday I attended a very interesting session workshop, IAF workshop, led by Enrico. I think you all probably know. He's now leading the special interest group about the online. Yeah, sorry, David.
It was the facilitation satellite or something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was the session was around hybrid workshops as well, because this is the mainstream subject, to be honest, on these days in emails or sessions or whatever. So there was some. It was a kind of session based on a script, starting with the check-in, presentation, delivery, and coffee breaks even. And everybody agreed that most of the people agreed that the coffee break in the session is something really important, and is something especially difficult maybe to manage in hybrid workshops, because how you synchronize, how you keep the psychological safety alive among both in presence and online people, how to keep them engaged, given that the coffee break is a bridge between the one part of the workshop and the following part of the workshop. So how to keep alive, how to keep people engaged, given that you have different people online and in presence, how to create this space, physical space for even connect online people with people in presence, keeping the conversation alive, maybe some funny activities in that 30 minutes or 20 minutes breakout, coffee break. So this is something that, I think especially the conversation, keeping the conversation and let people meet each other and start conversation is the most important. But it was interesting to notice that the coffee break in a hybrid meetings is something really to pay attention and to take into account. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. It was
no. And I think again, it's another of these things that is something probably you wouldn't think about normally, but every element of a hybrid session needs to be really, really carefully thought through. It really does. I'm very conscious of time. What I want to give you all time to do, I've just set up some breakout rooms to put you into pairs, and I'll join one of those so there's people have a pair to talk to. And just to have a moment to kind of go, okay, we've chatted for, it's an hour and 20 minutes, so that's gone incredibly quickly. What is it that's got your attention over the last hour and 20 minutes? And what from that, what got your attention? Why did it get your attention? And what does it mean? What does it perhaps mean for your facilitation practice in this hybrid environment? And just a little bit of time to digest some of the things that we've been talking about and pull out some insights for yourself. So I'm just going to do kind of probably a very quick, it's probably about 7 or 8 minutes. So it'll just be a quick little share in pairs. And David, are you all right to stay in the main room and just...
Yeah.
hold things, hold the space for us.
Yes, I'll hold that
Thank
space.
you. Brilliant. Steph, I'll be in to join you in a second.
Lovely.
How do I get myself to join?
Where you want to go and see Steph, is it?
Yes, please. Yeah.
So number 3 up.
Lovely. Thank you.
Okie dokie.
Okay, David, should we bring everybody back out?
Okie dokie. If I do this, does that stop it immediately?
Yes, it's 59 seconds. So
okay, I wasn't sure if it kind of whipped them back out. Okay.
Lovely. Steph's come back out because she was in there on her own. And
sorry.
I mean, you might want to talk to yourself, Steph, but
not quite.
Just don't start arguing with yourself. That's all.
Oh, I'll try to avoid that, David.
We will be forced to intervene then at that point. Yeah.
Oh, I have some of the best arguments with myself.
You always win.
Of course.
I'm loving the colours in your room, Gwen. Those are both my favourite colours, the steel grey blue and the orange.
Yeah, yeah. I'm even colour coordinated with my clothes today.
I did notice in a good way.
I've gone a little bit over the top with orange today.
I love
it. Pointed out.
I think it's wonderful, but there you go.
Oh dear, one of my favourite colours. Welcome back. I think we're just waiting on.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Brilliant. So, any reflections or insights that people want to share about what caught their attention and what it means for their facilitation practice? Isabel?
Yes, I was just thinking in the early days, because we're both part of the UK NTL network.
Yes.
And in the early days, a lot of people kind of got together and started having impromptu Zoom meetings, not about anything, not even about anything serious, although it was sort of serious in that we were reflecting on how we were coping with lockdown.
Yeah.
But for me, it enabled me to have a play and have a practice with the tool. And I was just thinking that for me, that's what's missing at the moment. I haven't had a chance to play with hybrid in a safe, non-commercial setting to allow me to get it wrong without worrying about getting it wrong. And I was just thinking that tonight I'm going to meet my drama group, and there are at least 2 people that can't come because they're not in London.
Right.
And my brain's going, well, maybe even if I just FaceTime them while I'm there and see how they feel about joining in the play reading without being in the room, and how does it fit? Do you know what I mean? It almost doesn't matter whether it works or not. It's not important. It's it's what does it feel like, and what can I learn? What can the person who's running it learn? What can the person who's not physically in the room learn from what it feels like? And so I'm just thinking about playing, and I think that's
brilliant.
Just given me a wonderful idea for a series of workshops on the IAF.
There you go.
Fake hybrid sessions, come and mess it all up or something. No, you're right.
I'll be the virtual one.
I'm just wondering, if you could get maybe 3 or 4. I mean, your drama group, we could do so. I don't know. We just need to know how we're going to manage people in the physical space, because the virtual people will get them, but that we create a theme, something like literary, like Steph was talking about. We talk about a book, or we talk about something, and that we get to live that, participants. Because I had my background is in language teaching, and I had a director one year, and she made us take Chinese lessons to know what it was like to be lost.
Right.
Yeah. It was a great idea, because we were all 20 years experience going, yeah. And they were like, oh God, this is what our students feel like. It's good to be, it's good. I'm going to knock that down. Thank you, Isabel. I will credit the idea to you.
No, we love that one, Isabel. But you're right. How do we create that safe space so we can get it wrong without it having client-related consequences?
I took up ice hockey for the same reason.
I know. I always remember Mayanne, telling me off for experimenting with my clients. I have to say, I do still experiment with my clients, but I've always been told off for doing it. Any other? I'm conscious we're kind of now overrunning, but if there's anybody else wants to share any insights about now their hybrid facilitation, then please do before we close.
It's just a huge boost in confidence. Thank you so much, because in the best possible way, we are all making it up as we go along. and that's a really good feeling. And Isabel, to hear you say, oh, my daughter calls me a Zoom baby. We can still do this. The stuff that we're struggling with, lots of people are struggling with, and we just need to ask the question, and it is okay to bring in, support in terms of people working with us. So yeah, thank you for that as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for showing up. I thoroughly enjoyed this evening. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, very nice.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. Lovely to meet you all. Thanks for subscribing.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Good night. Bye.
That's a great idea. The sessions, Isabel. It's a great idea. Come and mess up your hybrid session and take away your lesson, something like that.
Indeed. I'm on the South Coast, so I'm in the New Forest.
Now actually I'm going to the New Forest next week.
I'm
going to stay with a friend in Southbourne, so we're not going to be far.
Oh right, yes. Well, I'm in Lymington, just along the coast.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah. If you head over this way, then let me know.
Okay, we'll do.
Fantastic.
Right.
Lovely.
Into a hybrid session.
Bye.
Bye.
Becca, thank you so much for joining. It's been wonderful to see you.
Thank you for posting on LinkedIn, so I knew this would be here. David, what does IAF stand for, and is it only EU based, or is it international?
Let me tell you, it's the International Association of Facilitators. I'm part of the European Middle East team. With one of my responsibilities is organizing this series of Facilitation Insights talks. So you are welcome. There's a lot happening out there virtually, and it's open. A lot of it is open up to non-members, and we do not harass you to join. But we're always happy when somebody does, but we're not trying to reel you in by any means. But it's the International Association of Facilitators, 2,000 members. We're organized into different chapters. You're in the US. There's a chapter in the US. So that's it. IAF-world.org.
Okay.
Go into their events and you will find upcoming.
There's a conference, isn't there, at middle of October?
Yes. Thank you.
15th and 16th of October.
Global Facilitation Summit, and shortly afterwards there's a Facilitation Week. One of them is paying, one of them is not paying. I'm not really up to scratch on what's paying, but you can find out about that. So come along. I think one of them is free. I think. Do you know, Gwen?
I don't know. I haven't really
I'll
looked
look
at
at
it.
it.
One of them is $150 or something, or $200, and the other one is free, which is
Okay.
odd.
And where are you you sound Irish. Where are you?
I am Irish, yeah. But I'm based in the north of France. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
But I am actually, between you and me and the four walls and Gwen, I'm actually creating at a distance the Irish chapter of the IAF. So I'm heading towards being the first chairman of handling this at a distance. So facilitation nut is what they call us in Ireland, you know. So yeah. So if you want any more information, if you want to chat, Rebecca, we can have a chat about it. You know, it's not a sales pitch, but if you want to know more, I've chatted with people before.
Okay.
An email, contact at davidbishop.fr. We can set up a little chat on Zoom if you want to know anything, because there's lots to know. So it's a mad world out there with facilitators. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Two of the members here. All right then.
Thanks so
All right.
much.
Thanks,
All right.
Beth.
Take
Lovely
care.
to see you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, David.
Bye.
Take care. Thanks.